My survival strategy is simple. Ambush, bite, wait for venom to work. Komodo Island, Indonesia, 6:47 in the morning, when the sun hasn't yet cleared the tree line and the jungle air still holds the coolness of night. This is a Komodo dragon, Varanus komodoensis, better known as the world's largest living lizard. And for 12 days it has been searching for food while its energy reserves steadily deplete. And when it finally detects the scent of potential prey in the morning air, it makes a decision that seems logical based on millions of years of evolutionary programming. But in this case, that ancient instinct will prove fatal within 3 seconds. In this video, we're going inside the biomechanics of defensive adaptations and predator-prey dynamics to see how a creature weighing less than 30 pounds can defeat one of nature's most formidable apex predators through pure evolutionary engineering. To understand what makes this encounter so remarkable, we must first appreciate what a Komodo dragon represents in terms of predatory capabilities. Because these reptiles can reach lengths of 3 meters and weights exceeding 90 kilograms, making them the largest lizards on Earth. And they possess a combination of attributes that should, theoretically, make them nearly invincible in their island ecosystems, including powerful limbs capable of sprinting at speeds approaching 20 kilometers per hour, serrated teeth designed to tear flesh, and, most critically, venom glands that secrete anticoagulant compounds which prevent blood from clotting and cause prey to weaken from blood loss over hours or days. Research conducted in the early 2000s revealed that Komodo dragons don't kill primarily through bacteria in their saliva, as previously believed, but rather through sophisticated venom delivery systems located in their lower jaws. And this venom contains proteins that lower blood pressure, prevent clotting, and induce shock, effectively weaponizing the dragon's bite in ways that make even large prey like water buffalo vulnerable. And this combination of size, speed, teeth, and venom has allowed Komodo dragons to dominate their ecosystems for millions of years, with virtually no natural predators capable of threatening adult individuals. Meanwhile, the crested porcupine, Hystrix cristata, presents a completely different evolutionary strategy. Because at 30 kilograms maximum weight and lacking any venomous capabilities, sharp teeth, or significant speed, this rodent should, theoretically, be easy prey for any large predator. However, evolution has provided it with a defensive system so effective that it has survived unchanged for millions of years. And that system consists of approximately 30,000 quills covering its body, each one a masterpiece of biological engineering. Porcupine quills aren't merely sharp hairs, but rather highly specialized structures composed of keratin, the same protein that forms human fingernails and bird feathers, but organized in a way that creates devastating effectiveness as defensive weapons. And each quill tapers to an extremely fine point, measuring just a few micrometers in diameter, sharp enough to penetrate skin, muscle, and even thin bone with minimal force. However, the true genius of quill design becomes apparent only under electron microscope examination, which reveals that each quill is covered with hundreds of microscopic backward-facing scales or barbs, similar in principle to a fishhook. And these barbs serve a critical function, because once a quill penetrates tissue, the barbs catch on muscle fibers and connective tissue, creating a ratcheting effect that makes removal extremely difficult and actually causes the quill to work deeper into tissue with every movement of the victim's muscles. Researchers at Harvard University conducted experiments demonstrating that barbed quills require 4 times more force to remove than smooth needles of equivalent diameter. And furthermore, the quills continue to migrate deeper into tissue even after the initial penetration, traveling at rates of up to 1 millimeter per hour, driven purely by normal muscle contractions. And this means that a quill embedded in a predator's mouth or throat will continue working deeper with every breath, every swallow, every movement of the jaw, creating escalating damage over time. When a Komodo dragon attacks a porcupine, the encounter unfolds with shocking speed, because the porcupine's defensive response is essentially instantaneous, requiring only 0.3 of a second from threat detection to full defensive posture. And this response involves erecting all 30,000 quills simultaneously, rotating its body to present its heavily armed rear toward the threat, and rattling specialized hollow quills that produce a warning sound. But if the predator has already committed to the attack, this warning comes too late. The moment the dragon's jaws close on the porcupine, hundreds of quills penetrate the most sensitive areas of its anatomy, driving into the tongue, gums, roof of the mouth, and throat. And because these tissues are rich in blood vessels and nerve endings, the pain is immediate and excruciating. But more critically, the barbed structure of the quills means that the dragon cannot simply open its mouth and release them. Instead, every attempt to open or close the jaw drives the quills deeper, and within seconds, the dragon's mouth becomes a trap of its own making. With quills embedded through crucial structures, the dragon loses the ability to close its mouth properly, which eliminates its capacity to eat. And since Komodo dragons are ambush predators that rely on consuming large meals periodically rather than feeding continuously, the loss of feeding capability represents a death sentence. And field observations have documented cases where dragons injured by porcupine encounters have starved to death over periods of days or weeks, unable to consume food, despite being surrounded by potential prey. Furthermore, the quills continue migrating deeper over time, and in some documented cases, quills that initially penetrated the mouth area have been found days later having traveled into the throat, the esophagus, and even puncturing into the trachea, creating risk of suffocation or lung infection. And unlike mammalian immune systems, which might eventually work foreign objects out through suppuration and healing, reptilian immune responses are slower and less effective, meaning that infected quill wounds often become septic, adding infection to the list of threats facing the injured dragon. The effectiveness of porcupine defense isn't unique to Komodo dragons, but rather represents a pattern that has been documented across multiple ecosystems and predator species. Because lions, leopards, hyenas, and even apex predators like tigers have all been found dead or severely injured after attempting to prey on porcupines. And in some African ecosystems, porcupine quills are among the leading causes of mortality for young or inexperienced predators who haven't yet learned that certain prey items carry costs that far exceed their nutritional value. This has created powerful selective pressure for predator learning and cultural transmission of knowledge, because in regions where porcupines are common, predators that survive encounters pass this knowledge to offspring and pack members, creating what ethologists call cultural avoidance, essentially a learned behavior that gets transmitted across generations without requiring each individual to personally experience the consequences. And this demonstrates that sometimes defensive adaptations work not by preventing all attacks, but by ensuring that attackers suffer enough damage that they learn to avoid similar prey in the future. The remarkable success of porcupine defensive strategy is evidenced by the fact that this body plan has remained essentially unchanged for millions of years across multiple continents, with porcupine species in Africa, Asia, and the Americas all independently evolving similar quill-based defenses, suggesting that this represents an evolutionary local optimum, a solution so effective that natural selection has repeatedly converged upon it whenever the ecological circumstances align. And so we come to understand that predator-prey relationships are not determined solely by size, strength, or venom, but rather by the complex calculus of cost versus benefit. And porcupines have evolved a defensive system that makes the cost of attack so prohibitively high that even apex predators, capable of theoretically killing them, choose instead to seek easier prey. And this encounter between Komodo dragon and porcupine represents a perfect example of how millions of years of evolutionary refinement can create defensive capabilities so effective that they transform apparent vulnerability into practical invincibility. But the crested porcupine isn't even the most heavily armed member of its family, because the African crested porcupine can grow even larger and carries quills that can exceed 40 centimeters in length, essentially turning these rodents into mobile fortresses capable of deterring even the most desperate predators. And in some regions, these animals have been observed actively charging at threats, using their quills as offensive weapons that can inflict injuries severe enough to kill lions and leopards. This proves that quill-based defense represents not a single evolutionary invention, but rather an entire family of related strategies, each refined for specific environments and predator communities, demonstrating that sometimes the best offense truly is an impenetrable defense. But while porcupines evolved one type of defense against land predators, the Amazon River hosts an entirely different array of survival strategies in the most biodiverse and deadly ecosystem on Earth. If you want to see where 1/3 of all species fight for survival, check out our Amazon River video, where we explore the most dangerous concentration of predators anywhere on the planet. Click the link now to watch.